Morning.
Hey, Bill.
It's some familiar faces this week. With Frank and Andrew Luck. Those guys were hard to compete against. At a different point in time. So have some memories, some real battles with the Colts and when Frank was in Philly, and so multiple other places. But anyway, it's been interesting watching watching Stanford this year. Big win against Florida State. Good come from behind win against San Jose. The 2-minute drive they had against San Jose, the last 3 minutes of the game to get out on the field and win. Was on the pass to Williams. Well, he got it down to the 1-yard line, but anyway, that was a big win for him. I thought they played well in several other games, like Virginia, for example. But an interesting team. Looks like they've made a change of running back or quarterback with Elijah Brown. He played the fourth quarter against Pittsburgh and did some good things in that game. I guess enough to for them to make the change. Had a couple good running backs, a couple good receivers, and a young offensive line. So defensively, Bobby April, his family's had a long legacy of coaching. A lot of respect for him and that defensive staff. They play very fundamentally sound up front. They're pretty good. The defensive linemen and all are aggressive. They play hard, and have a couple of good specialists again, which we've seen that last few weeks. Punter and kicker. So good field position. Team that can change field position in the kicking game, which we've seen from Cal and Virginia the last couple of weeks as well. So, new challenge for us here. We'll get to work. Obviously, don't have a lot of film on Brown to watch, but we have some. But anyway, it is what it is, and we'll just have to try to do a good job of fixing some of the things that we need to fix and correct some mistakes on our end, and keep improving, keep working. And that's been our theme all year, and just need to do it again this week.
We can start the second row on the right here.
Hey, Bill, Dave Nathan with the Tar Heel Sports Network. With 4 games left in the season, there's decisions to be made on who redshirts. How do you and Michael and the staff and the players have that process play out in the next month?
We've already had a few of those. We'll see which other ones do or don't come up, but Michael and I would talk to the player and evaluate the situation and do what's best for him and the team, primarily the player. Depending on the situation, but generally those players have minimal play time and for a year of eligibility. And, is it really worth it? So we'll do what's best for the player and the team, but most likely if they feel like they want redshirt a year, we do redshirt.
Front row here on the right.
Hey Bill, when Austin Blasky came here, he said he wanted to play center and go to the NFL. I know early on the season things changed with injuries and different things, but how do you view him as a center, I guess, moving forward throughout the rest of the season?
Good. I mean, he's shown position versatility all the way through, which going to the next level, that's a huge advantage. The NFL teams can only take 8 players to the game, so you don't have a backup at every position. Somebody has to play more than one spot, whether that's a starter who moves or a backup who moves, however you do it. And then if you ever need a situation at tight end, which a lot of teams are a little light there as well, and so a lot of times one of the offensive linemen plays the second or third tight end in those situations. So the versatility of an offensive lineman is a huge advantage in the National Football League. So I think that's really something that Austin has benefited from, and he's had an opportunity to play all three spots along the line. I think center's a good position for him, but he's shown he's been able to play all three. So we're fortunate to have him, and not only has he played well, but he's given us a lot of leadership. Unfortunately, he missed the majority of training camp in the first 3 weeks of the season. Came back in the Clemson game with really not too much practice, and he's just gotten better and better each week. So I think his best football this year is still ahead of him, and I'm excited to see that.
Michael on the right, front row.
Bill, you mentioned Andrew Luck. When you were coaching against him, interacting with him in the NFL, did you get a sense that he could have like a front office position like he's doing at Stanford now in his future? Did he sort of give you that vibe?
I wasn't really thinking about that at that time, just trying to, figure out a way to stop him. But, he's a smart guy, obviously. He's got a great, history at the school. But just as a competitor, he's, was a very smart quarterback, a guy that was well prepared, followed Manning in there, which is a pretty high bar. But I think he, was at that same level. Didn't have a long career, unfortunately, but he was, outstanding in the way he led the team, competed, and made decisions and adjustments on the field. So I'm sure that he's more than qualified to handle those decisions and the strategy of building a team and putting it together and so forth, and leading that school in the football program, and then hiring Frank. Those guys have been together as well, so similar thought process, and I'm sure what they're doing is consistent with what they want to do. So I see all that in the right direction for them.
Front row, far left.
Hey Bill, wanted to check with you about how Thad Dixon's coming along. We've seen him running around some in the pre-games, and he looks like he's moving okay. Like, could he be getting closer to getting back on the field for you guys?
He's definitely getting closer. He's more active than he's been. Again, that'll all come from clearance with the doctor. It's an internal thing that needs to be inside the body. Meaning, that just needs to be cleared by the doctor. So when that happens, we'll go from there. But until that happens, then he wouldn't be able to play.
Yeah. So he hasn't practiced yet since he got hurt, I guess.
Correct. Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
right front row.
Hey Coach, Kobe Pacers had 3 straight games of 3 catches and 50 yards. How has he helped open up the offense, and how much does he have to do with Gio's improvement over time?
Yeah, Kobe's done a good job for us all the way around, catching the ball, but also blocking. He plays in the kickoff return team. He shows a lot of toughness and competitiveness whenever he's out there. After the catch, making tough catches, blocking, and so forth. So, again, glad we have him, and he's really helped giving us some good solidification with the receiver corps, which of course every quarterback loves that, and some versatility where he and shift and move around. When we've had some of our other younger players in there, like Madrid and Shinar, Nate Leacock, guys like that, who are less experienced. But those 2 guys, provide a lot of experience and stability for the passing game in the receiver position.
Andrew, front right, front center, sorry.
Bill, when you look at Melcart and his uptick in productivity lately, what are some of the things that are discernible in how he's playing now, and some of the things he's doing from a fundamental standpoint now that he had to work on, maybe he wasn't quite there earlier in the season?
Yeah, nobody works harder than Melcart. He's a very good worker in every phase of the game. In the training, his off-season training or in-season training, lifting, conditioning, all those things, take care of himself in the training room, film, practice, and then applying it in games. He just is on a good upward, trend that he's been on since he's been here, and each day he just gets a little better and does something, today or that he didn't do it, yesterday or a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Whether that's in the running game, the passing game, with special teams, or something in conjunction with another player, like pass rush games and things like that. He just, continues to hardest workers, and it certainly has paid off for him in his production and performance. So, he's a real grinder, and it's been great for our program.
Second row in the center, Brian.
Bill, first, congrats on the Hall of Fame nomination. I don't think we got a chance to talk to you after that came out. I wonder about the guys on the sideline that are inactive for that game. How did you come up with that process of having guys stand on the sideline, not be dressed out, that are inactive for that game? How do you come up with the right number of guys to be up, I guess, for that game? And were those difficult conversations to have with them? If you're not going to play, you're not going to dress, you're going to be on the side.
Well, everybody earns their own playing time, so that's really what it's about. And whether it's, we have a travel roster for away games. We have something similar for home games. Not quite the same, but it's the same general concept. So the players that have a role in the game, the rest of the game, or could have a role in the game, the rest of the game, the other ones are working hard. Some of them have earned roles. Some of them I expect will earn.
Right in front of Coach Rod.
Hey, Rob.
Bill, good stuff from the defensive backfield of late, particularly Caleb Cost. What have you seen from that group, especially in this stretch, without that out there?
Yeah, it's been impressive. Losing that obviously is a big loss. Certainly one of our best players, but we've had a lot of guys step up and play well and improve our collective play as a group, from communication to adjustments and technique and so forth. I think Brian and Mondo have done a really good job with that group of cohesively bringing them together, and they've played well, as you said, in spite of losing that for a few weeks. So a lot of credit to the players and the coaches for just kind of the unification that's come from that group in the last few weeks. It's really been impressive.
Right behind him, Shelby.
Shelby's also a news observer. Here's, this matchup, Stanford, Coach Wright, obviously two former NFL coaches that are facing off in college, and obviously it has to have been a bit of a learning curve, maybe, for instance, like teaching younger, less experienced players with less time. They gotta go to class. I'm curious, maybe at this point in the season, what's the biggest thing you've learned, or maybe adjustment you've made in terms of coaching and approach to that coaching?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the coaching's about the same, honestly. I think, as I've said before, the biggest difference has been the volume of players that are potentially on your team, the number of potential recruits, the number of potential portal players, whether you're in that process or whether you're where we are right now, kind of on the on the edge of it, but obviously you're always heading into it or coming out of it, one or the other. So just kind of working through that. Just the number of players is a lot. In the NFL, the players who are free agents were the players whose contract expired. So you look at the contract, you see whose contract expired, and there's your 400 guys, or once you cut it down, maybe there's your 75 guys out of the 400 that you're actually interested in. I mean, here you've got 100 players on every team times however many teams. I mean, there's literally thousands of players that could potentially enter the portal or not. So that's a little bit different. And your team, everybody's a free agent or they're not. And that's different than in the NFL. You have, again, players under contract, or you have rights to players for upcoming year or years. This is just a lot different than that. So I'd say that's kind of the biggest thing. The coaching on the field is, you see something that you teach them how to do it, and if they don't do it correctly, then you correct them, and then you teach it again, work on it again, and then they get better at it. It's the same process that you go through it, maybe a little different level, but players they're playing against are at a different level too. So there's an equilibrium there. But I'd say that the difference in college for me is just the volume of players to recruit, to visit, to attract, if you will, versus drafting process and free agency process and portal are quite different. And let's say in the NFL, you feel like you had a set of rules that was it was clearly defined. Now they changed when the CBA changed every, call it 10 years, but the rules were clearly defined. Here, you know, there are a lot of, I mean, there's the House legislation, there's the NCAA, and then they kind of run together, and they don't, and it's a little more, a little harder to decipher exactly what can and can't be done, NILs to so forth. I mean, honestly, we are up all day talking about it, but it's a lot more, it's much less clear on a lot of those things. Now, Mike handles most of that, but it's just less clear on how a lot of those processes will work. I think right now it's fine, but it's like how will they work going forward with the recruiting class, with the NIL, for the, you know, the college guys who are actually in college, and their, let's call it contracts or arrangements. It's there's a lot of clarity that still needs to occur. And talking to other coaches, you know, in college football and other administrators, I think that's a pretty common viewpoint. So.
Right in front of our coach.
Yeah, Bill, you talked about Mel Carter earlier and, you know, kind of the production he's been having. I wanted to ask about, you know, the line as a whole. We've seen guys like Tyler Thompson get back there, or CJ Mims get back there, and not even just sacks, but tackles for loss in general. How have you seen, I guess, Mel Carter's, you know, increased play kind of open things up for the rest of the line to kind of get back there?
Yeah, you know, for our defensive line, it's very much of a do your job mentality, and you know, you don't know if the play is going to come to me or come to you. If we're in position, it'll come to one of us. But that's not something we control. That happens with where the runner decides to enter, or in some cases, you know, where the quarterback ends up throwing the ball from. So it's really about playing a good team defense, making sure that each player takes care of his responsibility. And of course, the pass rush is all dependent on the pass coverage, and vice versa. So when we cover well, that helps the pass rush. When we rush well, that helps the pass coverage, and so forth. So it's really about team defense more than one person, you know, being highlighted. Sometimes the plays just sort of come to that person, and the next week or a couple weeks later, it might come to somebody else. That's really a little bit unpredictable. But I would say overall, as a group, the defensive line has worked well together and improved every week. We've seen different running games. We've seen like the Clemson's counter runs. We've seen Virginia's more of a zone running team, and so forth. And so it's different from week to week how you play those runs, and how the defensive line, the linebackers have to fit into them and take on those blocking patterns. So, but they've done a good job adjusting to that and playing consistently up front. And the more consistency of the defensive line, and the more consistency you can have at linebacker, and the more consistency you can have with the defensive backs. You're playing at three different layers. When the defensive line is inconsistent, then the linebackers kind of don't know where to go, and the defensive backs kind of don't know where to go. They're kind of playing off the guy in front of you instead of being aggressive and playing to a clear-cut responsibility. So it all starts up front. And those guys have really done a good job for us. It's just gotten better every week.
Right, third row.
Hey, Coach, Jeremiah Thompson calling on the side. Before this past Saturday, going to Syracuse, the last one you all had was still in September. Can you just describe the move that you saw from the players, and for that point, can you also describe your own move, being able to capture that victory every single time?
Yeah, it's really the process has been the same all the way through. You know, we've won, we haven't won, but each week it's start a new week, and start the process of learning about our opponent, studying our opponent, understanding how we want to play, and going out there and practicing to that, you know, to that type of play, to that standard. And the things that we do well get reinforced. That's how we want to do them. And the things that we don't do well, we correct and say, here's how we need to improve them. And we just kept trying to improve every single day. Whether it was process still stayed the same. And it's been pretty consistent. I think that's really been the biggest thing why our team is continuing to improve, because they work hard every week. They improve every week. They literally improve every day. And, you know, when you stack those on top of each other consistently over a period of time, then you perform better. So we could still just eliminate a couple of major mistakes that we've made in the last few weeks. We'd be even better off. Take care of football better. So hopefully that's in the future for us.
Third row on the left, Coach.
Hey, Coach, Tim Keelan from ESPN. I noticed you avoided the part about your move.
Yeah, look, I think my mood's reflective of the team. It's great to win, and for, you know, a short time after the win, it's great to feel good and celebrate and all that. But you know, you're back at work and you're on to the next team on the schedule, win or lose. So you know, I try to turn the page relatively quickly, 12 to 24 hours after the game, and get on to the next challenge, because they're hunting for us, and you know, we gotta be ready to compete with them. So I just, you know, think those games that linger too long, good or bad, really aren't good for the process. Thank you.
Bill, you mentioned the sheer volume of players a number of times through these meetings. I know there's still 4 weeks left in the season, but is the front office already got a sense of who might be getting in the portal from other teams? And are you even having those conversations with your own players about who might be looking to leave at the end of the season, as you try to put together a board or try to put together a roster for next season?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, Michael and his staff are working on all the personnel matters, whether it's graduate transfers, whether it's potential portal players, or whether it's you know, high school recruits, which again, that's a moving target too, as high school players reclassify one way or another. So that's another process. But yeah, we're focused on the game and winning games. That's what we're focused on. But certainly there's another aspect of our program on the personnel side that's working on personnel matters.
Right front row here, Coach.
Bill, when you look at Stanford, obviously they've had some struggles on offense, but their defense is good enough to hold a pretty darn good FSU offense to 13 points.
Mm-hmm.
When you looked at what they did in that game and just sort of overall in the season with their defense, what is it that they're doing that has made them successful?
I mean, they don't give up a lot of big plays. First of all, their defensive line plays hard. They do a pretty good job against the running game. So you know, you need to throw the ball. I mean, I don't think you're just going to march up and down the field, you know, just handing it off. So you have to mix it in there, and they do a good job of not giving up big plays. They play, you know, quite a bit of zone defense, force you to drive the ball, convert third downs, go through the red area, and it's hard offensively if you don't have those explosive plays to, you know, to rattle off, you know, 15-play, 70-yard drives. I mean, it's just a lot of execution that the offense needs, and they make enough plays along the way to make sure you don't do that. So that's, and they get disrupted plays from their defensive line, so they come up with some second and 10, second and 12s, you know, third and 9s, and then, you know, you're behind on the sticks, and then you have to convert. So that's, you know, that's the hard part. And they don't give you anything easy. You have to earn it. They're very sound in their schemes, and they just don't give up a lot of easy plays.
Two more here, Adam, and then we'll finish up with Shelby.
Bill, what have you made of the progress of the freshman tackles? Jordan Hall and Miles McVay. Those guys seem like they've been getting some more playing time. They were out there quite a bit at Syracuse the other night. What have you thought of their progress? And can Jordan Hall hold up at left tackle out there?
Well, I think we've made a lot of progress across the board. I really do at all positions, especially on the offensive line. We've lost a couple guys, but you know, our younger players have continued to develop and improve, and so you know, the big part on most all these players is really consistency. Do they have enough talent to play? Yeah. Can they play consistently well enough against the competition to, you know, play a winning championship caliber football? Well, that's a good question, and that comes with time and performance. And a lot of times, scouted by the opponents, and there's enough film on tape to see, okay, well, here's the player's weaknesses, here's how we can attack them, and then, you know, can they hold up? And so the game becomes a little bit different after you've had a chance to scout and prepare for a player rather than, you know, just going up against them the first time. So, again, it's a process. We'll see how it goes. I'm encouraged by their progress, but I mean, they got a long way to go. They need to keep working and keep getting better and work on, especially the offensive line. It's all about fundamentals and techniques. You know, you're lined up this far away from the guy, and very quickly somebody either has an advantage or is at a disadvantage in the play. You know, like within the first half second of the play, you're either trying to recover or you have an advantage, and that initial step, footwork, reaction, hand placement, technique is so critical for that position. And it's a split second between success and failure, or between having an advantage and being in a recovery mode. And so those are the little things that you're trying to get at those spots on both sides of the line. So it's getting better. We'll see where it goes.
Shelby?
Yeah.
I believe it's the fourth time that you and Riker are facing off as head coaches, not including his time as OC, you know, Eagles and whatnot. But what matchups, if any, stand out between you two? What stands out to you about him as a coach?
Yeah, well, no, like Frank's, you know, an offensive coach that, you know, had a great playing career in college and the NFL. As an offensive coordinator, as head coach, I'm sure he's very involved in the offense. You know, it's a West Coast type of offense with other wrinkles that have been thrown into it, and a lot of 11 and 12 personnel. Love their tight ends, and you know, he's always utilized that. So strong running game, whether it was you know, Taylor at Indianapolis, or you know, he's got two good backs now. So I think those things are all fairly, you know, fairly common and fairly straightforward. Luckily, we aren't playing each other. He had a lot better playing career than I did. I don't think I'm going to be out there trying to tackle him, and that's probably a good thing for North Carolina. We'll let the players do that, but you know, in the end, it comes down to the players that you have, and you know, and he'll put his players in a good spot. They'll be fundamentally sound. They'll be well coached. They'll know what they're doing. They don't make a lot of mistakes. You know, they don't get a lot of penalties. They don't get a lot. You know, everybody gets a few penalties, but they don't get many. They don't get many dumb penalties. They do a pretty good job of taking care of the ball, and again, making you beat them, make you play a good football game to beat them. And that's what I think. That's the mark of any good team and any well-coached team. So, you know, we'll have to go out there and make sure that number one, we don't make mistakes that cost us, and number two, that we're able to do enough against, you know, the things that they do that they're good at to come out on top. So, but each game is different. Every one we coach is different. But I have a ton of respect for Frank and Andrew and their staffs. You know, just watching through two-thirds of the season, they've overcome some adversity and played, you know, very competitive football.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.